Okay, we're going to have a very short video on major transactions from the worksheet control of the company, and then we'll follow up on the summary of that question. Now, what we're looking here are major transactions, and we have 4 questions to look through. The first thing we have to decide is, do we have a major transaction? And that's defined in section 129, which I have open here from the Companies Act 1993. So a major transaction talks about an acquisition which is more than half the value of the company's assets before the acquisition. Secondly, a disposition, which is a disposal, which might be sale, it could even be gift, it might be leasing, it might be securities. Any disposal, however done, which is more than half the value of the company's assets before the disposition. Or a transaction, which might be a contract, which results in obligations or liabilities, including contingent ones, which is of value more than half the value of the company's assets. So the common feature is the half, which is figuring in all 3 sections. So in any situation where you can look at the transaction and say, what's its effect on the company? Are we selling? Are we buying? Are we entering into some arrangement which we can value at half the company's assets before we do the thing, the sale, the disposal, or the transaction? We have a major transaction. If that's the case, the directors have an obligation to refer this to shareholders, and the shareholders get to vote. And you can see they have to vote by special resolution. However, the transaction, which the company must not enter unless we have the special resolution, or it's contingent on approval by special resolution. So a company might enter a contract, and the terms of the contract will say this contract is not binding on the company unless and until the shareholders of the company have, by special resolution, passed a confirmation of this contract. If that's done, not a problem. Now, if we turn back to this spreadsheet, to the worksheet, summarize it, so just go through what is a major transaction. Then you ask the question, well, why? Why should they have this power? Well, the key to that, if you think about it, is in the words half the value of the company's assets. So this is a very, very significant or major transaction. And so shareholders are, of course, the owners and investors of the company. And so it's reasonable that they have a say in this matter. The problem is, of course, that we know it's a resolution. So a special resolution being at least 75% means that there might be 25% of the shareholders who don't agree with this. And we've already seen this process before. What do you do in certain votes if you don't agree with the company resolution? Now, this is where we turn back to section 106, as we did previously. Let's bring that up again. So these are the powers exercised by special resolution. Now, just a note here, we're looking through several of these which require special resolutions and activate buyout rights. These are the only ones that activate buyout rights. So simply voting against other resolutions is not going to activate that right for a shareholder. They're just going to be unhappy that they've been voted over the top of. Now, in here you'll see the company, when approving a major transaction, must do so by special resolution. And that leads us into the follow-up to 106, which is 110, where a shareholder is entitled to vote. So they'd have to have voting shares, as we talked about in shares. The shareholder casts all their votes against the exercise of the power, but the resolution was passed. That shareholder is entitled to require the company to purchase their shares under section 111. And we follow through that procedure from 111. So we can see that a shareholder can vote against it. This will result in some rights to them to ask the company to buy their shares, but you need to look through that procedure through particularly 114, 115 and ask the question, are shareholders really going to be able to get the company to buy their shares? The other thing to always ask in relation to section 111, the buyout rights, is the company will value those shares. And if the company is entering these transactions to save the company, which is in a bad position potentially, then the value of those shares can be quite low. What this means in reality is often the buyout rights are a little bit illusory, meaning you have those rights, but they are of very little value to you. Now we'll stop this video here and come back to the wider question of who controls a company, which is a summary of this section.